Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday, September 19th, 2022, and I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, on a beautiful, gorgeous day. It's about 81 degrees, low humidity, and it's mostly sunny. This last weekend, we were down near Tampa, my wife and I, attending a funeral, and it was interesting. At the hotel that we were staying at, it was the first morning, I think it was on a Friday morning, that I had told my wife to be careful when she took Lily out to go to the potty, because there could be alligators, because anywhere there's water in Florida, there can be alligators. And I didn't see any. I did a TikTok live prior to that, but when we went out to take Lily to go to the potty, there was a water retention pond behind, and then my wife noticed on the other side there was indeed an alligator, and it was probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 foot. It wasn't that big compared to the monster gator that we saw when we went kayaking down the Wekiva Springs River. That was it was at least 16 foot. It was huge, but anyway, everything in perspective. So all was safe. We traveled down Thursday and came back yesterday. And so getting back in the swing of things today. Excited about our breakthrough tour coming up this coming Sunday. We will be in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That is Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And that is at the Fire Church. Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and also at 6 p.m. That is also the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is the new Jewish New Year. So excited to see what the Lord does on that special day. You only get to experience that once a year. And then on October 1st, which is not this Saturday, but next Saturday, we will be in Greenville, South Carolina at the Faith Family Church. And then October 30th, Worldwide Deliverance Session, November 27th, Worldwide Deliverance Session, and then December 3rd, we'll be in Dallas at the Courtyard in Plano, Texas. We have tons of people signed up for that on Eventbrite, so excited to see the folks in Texas. So topic of the day is how to break unhealthy addictions. And I'm not sure if I've focused specifically any messages in the past about this subject, so I know that I've talked about those in the past, but not, I don't think I have specifically. I may have, but so interesting. Lord wanted me to talk about that today. And a lot of people that come through our ministry have been healed of various addictions to whatever, smoking, vaping, alcohol, sex, pornography, all kinds of stuff that we get addicted to. And I always say this, is that, the Lord can't get anyone delivered from addictions that don't want to be. So that's the first thing that a person needs to recognize, is that if you don't want to be healed and delivered of an addiction is basically anything that has control over you that you do not have control over, and it's going to be unhealthy, not going to be a healthy thing. You may have an addiction to, I don't know, reading the Bible. Well, that's a good thing. But this is specifically unhealthy addictions. So it could be a lot of different things. It could be food, could be your spouse. Think about that. I was going for a walk right prior to this, and the Lord reminded me that there are some people that have addictions to an unhealthy spouse who has demonic spirits. And we don't want that. That's not good, to be addicted to someone, to be submitting to someone that is ungodly, not healed, not delivered. If they don't want to be, they're not going to be. So, but I've got a list of several different addictions that I've written out here. So number one, though, you have to want to be delivered from it. If you don't want to be, you're not going to be. So that's why some people, maybe your parents did this to you, and maybe you're doing this to your children. Maybe your children are addicted to certain things that are not healthy, and you want them to be set free from that. Well, they're not going to be until they want to be. If a person has been hurt and wounded and they started smoking, several years ago, and now they're a teenager, then unless they want to be, they're not going to be. They may say, well, they did it because they were hurt and wounded, maybe from the mom, maybe from the dad, maybe from striving, fighting, arguing. So ultimately all addictions start with a root of pain that oftentimes comes through fear, through anger, through rejection, through striving, fighting, arguing. You can imagine if you are in a marriage, mom and dad, and there's striving, fighting going on, then the children will feel that. They will not feel secure. And then the enemy will come in and say, hey, you ought to be friends with these friends. They're going to accept you, not like your mom and dad. And then that you do, and then they're into smoking and drinking and sex and whatever other sundries. And when that happens, then that's how the enemy comes in. So all of a person's unhealthy addictions are going to be tied back to when they were hurt, when they were wounded. And the majority of people are hurt and wounded. Sexual things. If you are shown pornography, someone shows you that. I was a little kid, little boy, innocent little boy, 6 years old, not looking for it, just having to go to the bathroom. And then as I'm coming out, then these boys in the bathroom say, Nelson, come take a look at this. And they were like kids in my class. And I was shocked to see it was a Playboy magazine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be looking at this. This is bad. And there's so many that I've talked to where that's happened to them. Somehow someone has introduced you something sexually, or maybe you were touched when you were a little girl, little boy. You may not even remember it, but then you started to struggle because those demonic spirits took hold of you and then caused you to have feelings and drew you into unhealthy, ungodly sexual stuff that's going on. So anyway, we get wounded, we get hurt, then we will hear demonic spirits in our thoughts, which will tempt us or cause us to feel things, to do addictive things, to temporarily either soothe our pain or to cause us to feel pleasure. It's a temporary though. It never will heal the root of what's going on, which is a demonic root. And it will always cost us something, these addictions. You think about alcohol and smoking and vaping and drugs and food. People can have gluttony where they're addicted to a counterfeit comfort. And that's going to cost you money to spend it on all these vices. Same thing, sexual addictions and pornography will cost intimacy between a husband and wife. It will destroy marriages. It will destroy families. Can transmit STDs. It will also cause a church. You think about a pastor. If a pastor has been touched sexually, has been looking at pornography, then the chances of him speaking on the subject of sexual purity is pretty much slim to none because he's not walking in it. And if he's not walking in that, then how is he going to be able to teach it to other people? He's not. He's going to feel guilty. He's going to feel like, oh my gosh, if I speak about this, who am I? I'm a hypocrite. Because in some publications it says 50% of pastors struggle with pornography, in others it's up to 80%. Can you imagine if it's 80%? I mean, still 50% is pretty bad, but it's because they were all exposed. That's why really this needs to be done in all the churches, to be able to have the leaders to walk in sexual purity, to have the leaders to not have these various vices. Oftentimes the leaders will say, well, I don't smoke, but a lot of them will drink in excess and get drunk and so forth. Or they may say, well, I don't do drugs, but they may overeat on food, or they're going to be looking at pornography and not being sexually pure. Other addictions that I hadn't even thought about, but as I was walking, what kind of showed me that there's social media, gossip addictions, where people are looking at social media and following various people to see what their lives are, what's going on and so forth. And that really focuses around, oh my gosh, I want to hear all the good, bad stuff about these people. And that really, the core of it is gossip. And is that a godly thing? No, absolutely not. Addictions to watching ungodly movies or listening to ungodly music, that is not healthy. Addictions to the lust for money. If you are focused on making a ton of money, again, I was focused on making a ton of money. That's what I wanted to do. And I made a ton of money. And why did I do that? It's interesting. If you look about why we do certain things, well, I did it because my mom and dad argued a lot about not having any money. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna, You know, and people talk about making a vow. Well, I didn't make a vow, but maybe internally I said to myself, you know what? If I make a ton of money, we're not going to fight and strive over money. We'll have it. And so I focused on a career that made a lot of money, and we were able to save a lot of it, invest a lot of it. And so we really didn't have any arguments over money. It's like, well, where do you want to go on vacation? I don't know. Let's go to Destin, Florida. Let's go to the Smoky Mountains. Let's go wherever, because we had it, and then the rest we ended up investing. So that was not an issue, but there were other issues that happened, and there was not as much peace. Had a son that needed healed and delivered. But lust for money, you know, so a person could be consumed with wanting to make a ton of money, you know, and what will that cost a person? Well, oftentimes that becomes a love of money, so that costs you a relationship with God. It costs you the intimacy with God, the intimacy with your spouse, the intimacy with your family. You know, I remember one person I did a inner healing and deliverance with, and the guy was a multimillionaire. And his father was focused on making tons of money, like billions of dollars. And the guy that I took through deliverance, his brother took over the business. And I remember when I was talking to him about his wounds, and his wounds was his dad. His dad was this multimillionaire, but every time they went out to play football or to play some type of a game, the dad would say, hey, sorry, I got to go back in. I got to make a phone call. I got to take this phone call, or I got an email. I got to respond to it. And so it cost him a relationship with his father. His father then passed away and gave, you know, a good portion to the son. But the son was very broken, very sad. He was crying, he was weeping, because he's like, my dad, he never played with me. He never, you know, had time to do that, because he was all focused on money, the love of money. And then the other thing, addictions too. We could be addicted to a spouse. The Lord just was showing me this again as I was walking. He said there's a lot of people who have ungodly spouses. The spouses are serving Satan, essentially, because of why? You know, they can be going to church. A lot of these people go to church. They could be putting their hands up, praising the Lord. They could even pray in tongues. But it's how they treat their spouse behind closed doors. Are they talking down to them? Are they disrespecting them? Are they having tones with them? Are they provoking them? Are they, you know, they don't have to physically abuse, because most times demons in people know not to go to that extent, you know, but sexually they could be looking at pornography and justifying it, and then trying to get the spouse involved in that, and that's just all toxic. But if that spouse has demonic spirits and they're clearly operating in the fruit of the flesh, then I know that it's extremely hard, because we try to get along with our spouse as much as we can, as best we can. But if they are submitting their life to Satan, then by submitting our lives to the spouse, submitting to Satan, will affect us negatively. And it can cost us, you know, peace. It can cost us, cost us our health. I know a lot of people that submit to the demonic spirits within their spouse, and then that spouse says negative words to them, treats them negatively, treats them disrespectfully, and it hurts them over and over, year after year after year, and they want to die, kind of like Elijah said, just kill me. I don't want to, you know, he was battling in that case Jezebel, but in a very real sense, a lot of us are in battles with people that operate in that spirit of Jezebel, and it's extremely hard to get along with a person like that. You really can't, you know, because they will demand everything, and then they'll change the story of what they require as soon as you perform for them and do what they want. So, how do you break unhealthy addictions? To get to that root of the spiritual root is what you have to get to. And so when I take a person through inner healing and deliverance, that's what we're doing, is I'll go back and say to them, hey, how did your father treat you? How did your mother treat you? Where were the biggest wounds that you struggled with in your life as you were growing up? When you were a little girl, were you touched sexually? Did someone show you themselves naked? If you're a little boy, were you had pornography exposed to you? Did you have someone touch you? I have, 90% of the people that I do sessions with have had some type of sexual stuff done to them. And then what will happen is those demonic spirits will give those thoughts back to the person, remind them of the feelings that they had if they had an orgasm or masturbated, they will feel the pleasure of that, and then they will go back to that over and over and over again. You know, they will be intrigued by that. And so how do you get the sexual wounds healed is you go back to the very first time that the child can remember something done to them that they should not have had happen. And just basically have them close their eyes. They can remember what their feelings were. Oftentimes they were intrigued, they were excited, they knew it was wrong. You know, all these things, all these emotions on a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old child. And then I will say, I separate every demonic spirit from their soul. And you can do this on your own. You can get your own soul wounds healed. You know, again, it sometimes is more helpful to have a person that has done this thousands of times, but understand, you know, I wrote a book called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. And the goal of that book is to have people understand the correlation between when we do get hurt and wounded and the demonic spirits that gain access to us, legal rights. And that you can be a Christian, ask Jesus into your heart, and still struggle with these addictions, with these fruits of the flesh. And that's why a lot of people don't behave in a godly manner that they should. So you can do this on your own. You know, if you were sexually touched or molested, just close your eyes, go back to that time, remember what your feelings were, and then just say, I separate every demonic spirit that attached to my soul. And then ask Jesus to come to speak to you. And Jesus will always tell you, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That should not have happened. You were an innocent little boy. You were an innocent little girl when that happened to you. I am so sorry. You know, give me all of your wounds. Give me all of your sexual, lustful spirits and feelings. And that's what will happen is when you say that, say, Lord, I give you all of my sexual feelings that are ungodly. I don't want this anymore. I give this to you, Lord. And then Jesus will take that from you and then in return give you his sexual purity, his godliness. And then you can ask, Lord, give me my childlike innocence back. And the Lord will do that. He'll give you the childlike innocence, and then you'll feel pure and clean. There's no feeling like it in the world. You know, when I take people through these sessions and they feel that, they feel like, oh my gosh, I feel cleansed. I feel lighter. I feel pure. And you do. And then you can take authority, command every demonic spirit that attached to your soul, you know, from that experience to be gone to the pit in Jesus' name. You know, and you can loop together, combine together all the sexual things that you've done that you should not have done, you know, all together, and the Lord will heal all of that. And then you don't have those desires and feelings anymore. You know, you can resist it at that point going forward. You know, how do you get healed if your father talked down to you, was negative to you over and over and over and over again for 18 years or 20 years plus? Well, again, you separate every demonic spirit from your soul that came from your father. You just say that, and then you ask Jesus to come to show you or to speak to you about your dad. And then he will. He'll show you and say, I'm so sorry, but your father was also hurt. Oftentimes by his father, could be by his mother, could be by sexual violations. But the Lord will show you, give you insight as to what happened to your dad. And then you can say, Heavenly Father, I choose to forgive my dad for all the things that he said and did that hurt me. I give them to you, Lord, and I ask you to heal my soul wounds. And then take authority. Command every demonic spirit that attached to your soul from your dad be gone to the pit in Jesus' name. So as you get all your wounds healed from all the people that significantly hurt you, you'll feel lighter at the end of that session. And again, you can do this on your own. You don't have to do it, you know, with a deliverance person. You don't have to have a private session. Now, it can help. It can help jumpstart a lot of things. It can break off a whole lot. So if you want to, you can always do that. But you can also, you know, if a person gets triggered, we talked about this last week. Oftentimes people get triggered because they're not healed yet. And so if someone does something that looks like, smells like, feels like something that someone else did prior, then those demonic spirits will cause the person to feel like it's the very same thing again. You know, I see this over and over again. When you have a husband and wife get married, and let's say the wife was hurt by her father when she was growing up, then oftentimes the demonic spirits will tell the wife that, hey, your husband's just like your dad. You couldn't trust your dad, you can't trust your husband. And those could be complete lies. There may be some similarities, but it may be that, nope, the enemy's convincing you that, yep, just like my dad, I can still feel it. And then it causes you to overreact, and you trigger, and then you go off on the spouse. And that ends up causing him to feel provoked, and then he might say something, do something back, and then you end up having strife, fighting, arguing. Instead of being calm and saying, okay, once maybe you are apart and you're at peace, and then you ask the Lord, Lord, why did I feel this way? Why did I trigger? Why did I get really angry or upset? Or you can go the opposite way too. There's passiveness, passive aggressive, when there's no speaking whatsoever. But you can ask the Lord, why am I reacting this way? Why am I feeling this way? And the Lord will show you, hey, you felt this way because your father did this to you when you were growing up. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And so what do you do to get that healed? You say, Lord, I give you my feelings of whatever, anger, frustration, rejection. Lord, I want you to heal my wounds now. And the Lord will heal you. And then you take authority, command the demonic spirits to go. And the next time that your spouse does something that looks like, feels like what your dad did before, you won't overreact. You'll be at peace. So it's so critical and important to get those wounds healed from our past. And then the addictions, tying this back into the addictions. So again, you get hurt, you get wounded by a father, by a mother, by sexual violations, and the demons will tell you, hey, you need to drink alcohol. That will help you soothe the pain, and you start to drink alcohol. Well, then bad things happen when you drink alcohol. You get drunk, and then you end up saying things, doing things, people take advantage of you, sexually, whatever. And then when you come out of it the next morning, you end up feeling worse. You're like, oh my gosh, what did I say? What did I do? What happened to me? And it's because of those soul wounds that never got healed. Same thing that goes on with smoking and vaping and overeating, all these addictions tied back directly to our wounds. And when we get the wounds healed, we get delivered from that, we don't need to compensate in other ways. We can eat what needs to be eaten. We can drink water instead of alcohol. I drink lots of water. And we don't have to smoke and drugs and all that stuff. So when we're able to forgive, truly, those people that hurt us, and that takes away legal rights of the demons, you then command the demons to go. And then you don't get pulled into doing addictive things. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to look at pornography every 3 days, every 5 days. You don't need that anymore. And it's such a blessing when you're healed from those wounds, then you are walking in deliverance. And I do see a fair amount of people that I've taken through inner healing and deliverance that will get healed and delivered instantly. They feel lighter. They feel heat on them. They don't feel like, I had one boy, it was actually my oldest son's friend. He had tried to stop smoking, and I was like eating at Subway, and the Lord told me to go over to my son's house or apartment, so I did. This is many years ago, like, I don't know, back in 2015, I think, something like that. And so I went over there, and his friend was there, and his friend said, he learned what my ministry was, and he said, hey, I want to be healed. I don't want to smoke anymore. And that was, again, the first thing you need to do is you have to want it. So he wanted it. So I prayed for him, and he felt heat in his lungs. He felt heat in his mouth, in his neck, and he was getting healed from all the stuff that happened to him when he was smoking. And then he's like, well, am I going to get headaches? Because I tried before, and I got headaches all the time. And I was like, no, the Lord won't give you headaches. You'll be healed, and you won't have that. And so sure enough, he didn't have any headaches, didn't have any withdrawal, and he stopped smoking. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And he's like, yeah, that's very awesome. Because he said, I tried before, I couldn't do it. He said, but now I can. And I did. So ultimately, it was a great win for the Lord. And so a lot of these addictions can be healed instantly from the Lord if the person wants it. But it really does help to get those wounds healed, because again, the wounds from our past is what caused us to be tempted to hear those thoughts saying, you know what, it'd be a good idea if you drank a lot of alcohol. It'd be a good idea if you had sex with a lot of people. It'd be good if you did smoking and vaping and eating, and you get the wounds healed, and then you don't have those desires anymore. And then you get to walk out being in health. And it's good. It's good to be healthy. It's good to be walking in freedom. Then you can go for a walk around the lake, like right here. And you can be smiling at people and saying kind words and not taking an offense if somebody says something to you, you know. And so it's so critical, so important to get our soul wounds healed, get delivered from the demonic spirits, and then walk this life out. So what does the Bible say about all this? Galatians 5:16 through 26 says, I say then, walk in the Spirit, you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness. That's sexual impurity. It's making idols to sex and masturbation. And those are not godly fruits. And there's a lot of people that struggle with that. Then it goes on and says idolatry. Again, idolatry, we just talked about. Addictions are making an idol before the Lord. Addictions to a lot of different things. You know, drugs, alcohol, sex, all the things we mentioned, a love of money, and even other people. And then it goes on and says sorcery, which is witchcraft, which is trying to control another person, making them do what you want and not what they want, or what the Lord would want for them. So hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, which is partying, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I told you in times past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So there's a lot of people that struggle with these addictions. And we don't want to struggle, because we are making them an idol before the Lord. We want to get healed from our wounds, healed from our demons, so that we can really live a godly life full of the fruit of the Spirit. And it goes on and says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there's no law, and those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another or envying one another. Conceited is prideful. You could also be addicted, the Lord just reminded me, of cussing. You know of people that cuss a lot, and they curse and it comes out. They could have an addiction to that. It's because they were hurt, they were wounded, and they need to be healed from those wounds, and then they'll stop cursing. So there you go. All righty, well, I try and keep these to 30 minutes, and I have, and there's somebody that's mowing the grass around the lake, so I will let you guys go. Have a good rest of your day. So, alrighty, we'll see you guys later. Saying goodbye.